So hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. And today we're going to talk about challenge modes, because as the challenge mode season 1 is slowly coming to an end, people keep asking me more and more questions, because eventually you can't get the transmog gear or the mount or the achievements or the teleportation spells, so people want to finish them before the season is over and we get the new Warlords of Draenor season. And I get many questions now. Probably the weirdest question was, could you please make a guide for every single challenge mode dungeon? And unfortunately, I don't think you understand how challenge modes work. Yes, it's kinda helpful to sort of know what you're supposed to do, but when you eventually get to that dungeon, you'll find out that it's much better to just create a strategy for your group, because it's different because you have a different tank, maybe. Okay, I did it with a DK, I did most of them with a monk, and I also did a couple of them with the Guardian Druid as well after I finished them. And it was always different because they have different amounts of cooldowns, they play differently, and the dungeon generally is gonna flow differently. Okay, some tanks such as Guardian Druids and monks are really fast, where warriors tend to kite a lot more, where Guardian Druids, monks, and these kind of tanks tend to dish out an insane amount of damage, and it actually works out better for them than it would for a warrior. Warrior is much better at kiting, so therefore he can just kite. He will relieve a lot of stress on the healer, and the healer can do some damage, that kind of thing. So it really depends on your group setup. Also, what kind of DPS you have. Do you have hunter, so he can just dish out damage while he's running around, or are you just stuck full of arcane mages that need to stand still? The dungeon is always going to be different. So no, I'm not going to make a guide for every single dungeon, unfortunately. This guide is also not going to be for Moonkins specifically, and I'm getting some frame drop, so let's look away. I don't know what's going on. It's fixed. No, it's not. It's probably that thing over there. So this is not going to be for Balance Druids specifically either. It's going to be for Druids in general, because unfortunately, even though you can do it as balance is probably the worst spec in the game to do challenge modes with. It's really bad. Just not having enough stats, not having the haste breakpoints, not having the crit, it hurts you really hard. It's the same thing as it was with Proving Grounds. Moonkins are basically the worst class to do Proving Grounds with, and the worst spec. And I'm not saying that just because it's too hard. Just look, you can look up the numbers. Okay, Moonkins are ranking way below the other classes, so that's that. Then Feral Druids are slightly better for certain situations. If you can play around with Dream of Scenarios, you're probably gonna have a much better time than a Moonkin. Then we have a Guardian, which is okay, even though as a Guardian you're gonna take spiky damage, which could be dangerous in challenge modes. But if you remember, maybe if you have been there, when we did the all Druid flex, the other tank besides me was a bear called Rux, and that's my buddy. I know him, I've been playing with him since the start of Pandaria pretty much, and he switched to a Guardian Druid, and he did all challenge modes as a Guardian Druid, and I actually healed one for him if I remember correctly, and it was okay. Okay, so you can do it as a Guardian, you can even do it as a Moonkin, it doesn't really matter. Then the best way to do challenge modes as a Druid is with Restoration. So first of all, we're going to take a look at some talents. So here we are. I would recommend Displacer Beast. I will tell you why later. Then Cenarion Ward, because Ysera's gift is just not enough. Okay, it's just not enough. People don't have enough health for it to be worth it. Renewal, you should not be getting hit. If you are getting hit, then get a new tank. You cannot get hit in challenge modes. Okay, your tank needs to keep aggro on everything. And then we have Cenarion Ward, which is another hot you can throw on a tank and just let it sit there. So that's great. Then we have Fairy Swarm, Mass Entanglement, and Typhoon. Most of the time I take Fairy Swarm because sometimes it just happens where your tank doesn't have enough HP, maybe you're out of mana, and he needs to kite, and he can't. So you throw on Fairy Swarm, it doesn't have a cooldown, it will slow the enemy by 50%, which is great. Okay, then we have Incarnation, just Incarnation all the way for the big, when your tank runs in and he pulls like 3 or 4 packs at once. You just want to pop Incarnation and start spamming regrowths, because otherwise your tank is gonna die. So Incarnation, very, very good. Very, very good indeed. Ursul's Vortex, once again, pretty good for control, which is a very good thing. The more control you have, just the smoother the dungeon is gonna be. And then Nature's Vigil, because it does some damage, and it increases healing by quite a bit. Now, why not take Heart of the Wild, you might ask? Well, if you're a healer and your tank is not taking damage, you can pop Heart of the Wild and do some damage. Well, instead of picking Heart of the Wild, just have a Moonkin spec. Okay, this is what I did, for instance, in the Storm Snout Brewery. The last boss, the big elemental, he's a massive damage raise, because when he starts spawning the little buggers around him that heal him, you pretty much don't have enough damage to kill all of them and defeat the boss on time. So what we did is I just jumped into Moonkin spec, and I went for the most burst possible. You don't want Heart of the Wild, you want Nature's Vigil, by the way, because you don't have enough intellect to justify Heart of the Wild in these kind of dungeons, okay? So, hi dipshit, stop singing please. You want Nature's Vigil because it's good burst, it's healing, okay? So if your tank can't stay alive for 30 seconds, that's enough to kill a boss in challenge modes, okay? So you want this, you want Displacer Beast, Ysera because it can heal someone else, Fairy Swarm for some kiting, Incarnation for a big burst, Ursul's Vortex for some control, and Nature's Vigil for more damage and for more healing. And these situations will actually come up more often than you would think. Pretty much every single boss you can jump into Moonkin spec, and you can do it with 1 tank and 4 DPS. Because Nature's Vigil is enough to heal everyone for 1 boss. Okay? It's enough. It's not enough for trash and for some long bosses, but for bosses, especially last boss, if the boss can be survived or killed in 30 seconds, you can just jump into Moonkin spec and you can kill him that way. You will save a lot of time and stress, of course. You will relieve a lot of stress. And Nature's Vigil heals for a lot. Okay, if you have Bloodlust, yeah, it's gonna heal for a lot. Now let's talk about equipment, because that's another thing that I get asked a lot about. Equipment in challenge modes. Well, let's just say that I had this all the time, and I just swapped my trinket when I went into restoration spec. Why is that? Because, yeah, the spirit is not that great. Just take a look. Yeah, that's a pathetic amount of spirit. You surely can't have enough mana. Well, that's where this comes in. Let's just talk to this fellow. This is the Klaxi Quartermaster. If you reach Honored with Klaxi, which is not that difficult, you can buy Restorative Ambers. Encase yourself in Restorative Amber, restoring 200,000 health and 300,000 mana over 10 seconds. 1 second cooldown. So what you can do, let's buy a couple of them. Let's just say we use all our mana. Okay, I'm not gonna change into Resto now. We can demonstrate it as a Moonkin. So let's just, oh my god, I'm running out of mana. Oh my god, we are about to pull the boss. What you can do, and this is why you take Displacer Beast, by the way, is you're gonna run ahead, you're gonna just run, and then you're gonna do this. Before your group mates arrive, you can do this, and look at the mana. Yeah. This is Incarnation on crack. Incarnation. Innervate, I'm sorry. This is Innervate on crack. So what you can do, since this has a no cooldown, 1 second cooldown, what you can do is divide the dungeons. Every single dungeon, you can divide it into parts where you can run ahead, and you can use this restorative amber to restore all your mana in between fights. Or what you can also do, if you have a competent tank, which you should have for challenge modes, you can tell him, "Oi, do you have your shield wall?" "Yes." "Okay, pop it and try to stay alive," and you just boop. He's running around, he's kiting, he's using cooldowns, and you're regenerating mana. This is why you can go resto with your Moon King gear. This also means that you have a fuck ton of crit. Okay, you're gonna have a lot of crit. You're gonna have a decent amount of haste, not too much mastery, but you're gonna crit a lot. So when you throw all your hots on your tank, he's gonna survive. Okay, you're gonna do a lot of healing, and what you can do is when you're running through a dungeon, you're like, "Oh, I can have a break after this group, which means I can use all my mana on this group, and we can be safe, no stress." Okay, so you just pop everything, you just use all your mana, then you pop the amber, and before your tank pulls, and maybe he'll be in combat for 4 seconds, you're out of this ember and you have full mana again. This is very important. Okay, otherwise you need to customize your gear. And I think it's much better to just get Honor Reputation with Klaxi, if you don't have it already, than to just customize your gear. Cherry pick the best kinds of gear, the gear with most sockets, and stuff like that. So I think getting this is just miles better than customizing every single piece of your gear. And it's also reliable. You can use it maybe once during a dungeon because it's not very mana hungry, or you can use it 5 times in a dungeon. Okay, I bought about 70 of those things, and I did all challenge modes with them. And we had a lot of wipes there. Okay, so get this restorative ember from Klaxi Quartermaster. Now the last thing, if you really want to do challenge modes as a Moonkin, if you really want to do them as a Moonkin, you either hate resto or you just can't play resto, you're gonna be frustrated, and it's just sad. It hurts to say that, but as a Moonkin, you're just not competitive with the other classes. You need a lot of burst, which you have every 3 minutes with Incarnation, which is just not enough. You're gonna do bugger all damage on Thrash, and if you just get into the wrong Eclipse at the wrong time, you're gonna do no damage at all. So take my advice, try it as resto. If you just can't do it, then get a separate set of gear, or just reforge your normal gear so you have the haste breakpoint, you have as much crit, and you can actually do some damage. But I would definitely recommend going in there as resto. And the last thing, actually, one more thing, Symbiosis goes on the tank. More cooldowns for the tank is always better. Okay, Symbiosis all the time. And just stick with it. It took me months to find a group to actually do a challenge mode with a gold medal. But after that, when we had this group, we did all of them in about a month. Okay, and we did maybe 2 of them a week, then we did 1 the next week, and then we didn't have time, and then after another week we did 1 more, and eventually you will get through them. It's a trial and error. You just go in, you run through, and you die. You're like, well, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? So you will try it again, but differently, and it works a lot better, and you're like, okay, this is great, this is working out, and eventually you will just get through, okay, with invis potions and everything, just you have to use all your entire toolkit. Okay, Stampeding Roar all the time. When you have to run from A to B, use Stampeding Roar if you have it. Just use your brain. And some dungeons, one more thing, some dungeons are just Thrash heavy, where the Thrash is actually the difficult part. getting to the bosses is the difficult part. The bosses themselves, not so much, but the Thresh can be very difficult, and other dungeons are the complete opposite, where the Thresh is just something in your way, and the bosses are the difficult part. So you need to be flexible. You need to just, when you die and when you wipe for the 10th time, you can't just quit. Okay, you need to go back and try a different approach. Maybe watch someone run through them and be like, okay, let's try this. Maybe it works for us. But just don't give up. You're not gonna get it on your first go. I guarantee you that. If you just assemble a group and you go in, you're pretty much gonna die. Straight up, okay? Maybe even the first pull is gonna kill you because you don't know what to expect. So just stick with it and don't give up, and eventually you will get through. It's not that difficult. I never had a problem where I was just healing, I ran out of mana and the tank died because I couldn't heal him. We died because we fucked up. It's as simple as that. It's always your fault. That's the point. When you die in a challenge mode dungeon, it's always your fault. You can learn from that mistake and never repeat it again. And you can get through. It's as simple as that. You don't need me to record every single challenge mode, be like, oh yes, after 2.6.8 seconds you're gonna use this spell, and then you're gonna make 2 steps to the right, and then you're gonna do the YMCA dance, and then you can use tranquility. And that's it, this is how you defeat this dungeon, I thank you all for watching, and blah blah. No, that's just not gonna work. Just try it out, learn from your mistakes, and forge a tactic that suits your group. And of course, get TeamSpeak or Ventrilo, because without that, you fucked. And that's pretty much it for this video. I thank you all for watching and listening, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.